I should have known better than to attend Victoria's wedding. My older sister had made it clear over the past 5 years that my presence was more of an obligation than a celebration. But Mom had insisted, using that particular tone that meant refusal would result in 3 months of passive-aggressive phone calls. The Riverside Grand Hotel was Victoria's choice, a sprawling venue with crystal chandeliers and marble floors that screamed expensive taste. She'd married Marcus Caldwell, a senior partner at his father's investment firm, the kind of man who wore his privilege like a second skin. I arrived wearing a simple navy dress I'd grabbed between board meetings. Nothing flashy. Nothing that would draw attention. "You actually came," Victoria said when I found her in the bridal suite, her tone hovering between surprise and disappointment. Her wedding dress probably cost more than most people's cars. All silk and intricate beading that caught the light. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied. She studied me with that critical gaze I'd grown accustomed to. "That's what you're wearing? It's a nice dress." "It's plain." She adjusted her veil in the mirror. "I suppose it matches your lifestyle. How's the little internet thing going?" "It's going well." The sound conveyed everything: doubt, dismissal, disinterest. "Mom mentioned you're still doing that startup thing." 5 years now. 6 actually. 6 years. She shook her head. "Don't you think it's time to get a real job? Marcus knows people. He could probably get you an entry-level position somewhere respectable." I kept my expression neutral. "I appreciate the thought, but I'm happy where I am." "Happy?" She laughed. "Sophie, you're 28 years old. You should have a career by now, not a hobby that loses money." My company, Nextstream Technologies, had just closed our Series D funding at a $4.2 billion valuation 3 months ago. Last week we'd finalized our IPO paperwork. The public announcement was scheduled for today, specifically 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The timing was unfortunate, but I'd tried to move it. The SEC doesn't reschedule for wedding conflicts. "I'm doing fine, Victoria." "That's what you always say." She turned back to her reflection. "Just try not to embarrass me today, okay? Marcus's family is very well connected. His father knows senators. Real successful people." The ceremony itself was beautiful. Victoria had always had excellent taste in aesthetics, if not in empathy. I sat in the 3rd row, sandwiched between distant cousins who didn't bother making conversation. Mom found me during cocktail hour. She looked elegant in a champagne-colored gown, her hair styled in perfect waves. "Sophie, darling, you could have tried harder with your appearance." "Hello, Mom. I'm serious. This is an important event. The Caldwells are very prominent." She glanced around, lowering her voice. "Marcus's mother asked what you do for work." I didn't know what to tell her. "You could have told her the truth. That you work at some internet startup?" Mom's eyebrows rose. "She'd think we raced a failure." I told her you were between opportunities. "I'm the founder and CEO of a company no one's heard of." She patted my arm. "It's fine, dear. Not everyone can be successful like Victoria. She's marrying into one of the most respected families in the state. That's real achievement." Dad joined us, drink in hand. He'd put on weight since I'd last seen him, his tuxedo straining slightly at the buttons. "There's my youngest. Still playing tech entrepreneur." "I am an entrepreneur, Dad." Right. He chuckled. "When are you going to get serious about your future? You can't spend your whole life pretending to run a company." "I'm not pretending." "Sure, sweetheart." He squeezed my shoulder with the condescension of someone who'd never believed in anything I'd done. "Your mother and I worry about you. Living in that tiny apartment, no husband, no real career. It's not too late to go back to school. Get an MBA. Something respectable." My tiny apartment was a penthouse in Manhattan that I'd purchased outright last year. But I'd learned years ago that correcting them was pointless. They'd built a narrative where I was the struggling failure and Victoria was the golden child, and no amount of reality could penetrate that story. The reception hall was magnificent. Round tables dressed in white linens surrounded a massive dance floor. A live band played jazz standards. The bar served top-shelf everything. Victoria had spared no expense, though I knew from overheard conversations that Marcus's family was footing most of the bill. I found my assigned seat at table 9, far from the head table. My table mates were Victoria's college friends. Women in their early 30s who worked in marketing and finance, wearing designer dresses and discussing their recent vacation homes. "You must be the sister," one of them said as I sat down. Her name card read Jennifer. "That's me. Sophie. Victoria mentioned you." The way she said it made clear exactly what Victoria had mentioned. "What do you do?" "I run a technology company." "Oh, how interesting." Her smile was plastic. "What kind of technology?" "We develop AI-powered content distribution platforms. We work with major streaming services to optimize." "That sounds complicated." She'd already lost interest, turning to her neighbor. "Did you see Victoria's ring? 5 carats. Marcus had it custom designed." The dinner service began. Filet mignon and Chilean sea bass. Speeches from the best man and maid of honor. Victoria and Marcus's first dance. Everything was perfect, orchestrated, expensive. I was picking at my dessert when Victoria approached my table, Marcus in tow. She looked radiant, flushed with champagne and attention. "Everyone, this is my little sister Sophie." Her tone was bright, performative. "Sophie works at a startup. She's very dedicated to her little internet project." The table offered polite smiles. Marcus extended his hand. "Nice to finally meet you. Victoria's told me about your ventures." "Has she?" "The tech space is very competitive," he continued, his handshake firm and brief. "My firm looks at investment opportunities in that sector occasionally. Most startups fail within the first few years. The ones that survive usually get acquired for pennies on the dollar." "Some do better than that," I said. Sure. The unicorns. But those are exceptions." He draped his arm around Victoria's waist. "The realistic path is to build something modest, sell it to a bigger company and move into a stable corporate role. That's the smart play." Victoria beamed up at him. "Marcus knows everything about business. His father's fund has over $2 billion in assets." "Impressive," I said. "What's your company valued at?" Marcus asked with the casual cruelty of someone who assumed he already knew the answer. "We don't usually discuss that publicly." "That means it's not much." He laughed. "Look, no judgment. Everyone has to start somewhere. If you ever want real career advice, I'm happy to introduce you to our HR department. We're always looking for motivated people willing to start at the bottom." "That's generous." "Family helps family," Victoria said, squeezing his arm. "Even when some of us are more successful than others." Mom appeared behind them, champagne glass in hand. "Are we talking about Sophie's little hobby?" "It's not a hobby, Mom. It's a company with 347 employees." 300. Victoria blinked. "You have employees?" "Yes." "Like actual paid employees?" Marcus's skepticism was evident. "Yes." "Doing what exactly?" Dad had joined the growing circle around my table. Other guests were starting to pay attention. "We provide AI-driven content discovery and distribution technology to streaming platforms. Our algorithms analyze viewing patterns to optimize content recommendations and—" "Sounds like a complicated way to say you help people find TV shows," Marcus interrupted. "That's not exactly revolutionary. Netflix already does that." "We work with Netflix. And Hulu. And Amazon Prime. And Disney Plus. We power the recommendation engines for 17 of the top 20 streaming services globally." The group went quiet for a moment. Then Victoria laughed. "Sophie, you don't need to exaggerate. We're family. You can be honest." "I'm not exaggerating." "Sweetie," Mom said gently, "it's okay to be proud of what you've built. But claiming you work with all those companies, it sounds desperate." "I'm not claiming. I'm stating facts." "Facts that no one can verify," Dad added. "Look, we admire your ambition. But tonight is about Victoria and Marcus. Let's not make up stories to compete with their success." My phone buzzed in my clutch. A text from my CFO. "News goes live in 10 minutes. PR team standing by. You seeing this coverage?" I glanced at my watch. 5:50 p.m. "I'm not making up anything," I said quietly. "Of course not," Victoria said with exaggerated sympathy. "You believe in your little project. That's sweet. But Marcus and I are building a real future. His father's already talking about bringing him into the senior partnership. We're looking at houses in Greenwich. That's real success." Jennifer from my table chimed in. Victoria, didn't you mention your sister was struggling financially? Maybe she needs. I'm not struggling. There's no shame in needing help, Mom said. Your father and I have discussed it. We could loan you some money. Help you get back on your feet. You could take some classes, update your resume. I don't need money. Everyone needs money, sweetie. Especially when you're 28 with no real job and no prospects. Marcus checked his phone. Speaking of prospects, the market closed strong today. Tech sector was up. Even the struggling startups got a bump. He smirked at me. Maybe your little company gained a few dollars in imaginary value. Maybe, I said. Victoria's maid of honor rushed over, phone in hand. You guys have to see this. There's breaking news about some tech billionaire. She stopped, staring at her screen. Wait, she looks like. The reception hall had multiple TV screens mounted on the walls, usually showing a slideshow of Victoria and Marcus's photos. But someone at the bar had switched one to a cable news channel. The screen showed the CNBC logo. Breaking news banner. And my face. Not a candid photo. Not a blurry picture. My official press photo, the one we'd spent 3 hours shooting last month with Annie Leibovitz for the Forbes cover. Nextstream Technologies going public today with a stunning valuation of $8.7 billion, the anchor was saying. 28-year-old CEO Sophie Chen becomes the youngest female tech billionaire in history. The room began to quiet, people noticing the screens. That's. Jennifer pointed. That's you. Holds a 47% stake in the company, making her personal net worth approximately $4.1 billion. Victoria's champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the marble floor. The sound echoed through the increasingly silent reception hall. Marcus stared at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. That can't be. Revolutionized content distribution across major streaming platforms. Netflix, Amazon, Disney, Hulu. All confirmed as major clients using Nextstream's proprietary AI technology. Mom's face had gone pale. Sophie. The screen cut to footage of the Nasdaq opening bell. Me standing with my executive team, smiling as we rang the bell this morning before I'd rushed to catch a flight for the wedding. Trading opened at $43 per share and immediately jumped to $67, the anchor continued. This is the largest tech IPO of the year and one of the biggest in history. Sophie Chen, who founded the company 6 years ago fresh out of MIT, has been called the most influential figure in streaming technology. Dad's phone buzzed. Then Mom's. Then Marcus's. Then everyone's. The slideshow on the other screens had switched to news coverage. Every major financial outlet was running the story. Bloomberg. Financial Times. Reuters. Wall Street Journal. Forbes released their special edition cover early. Someone at another table said, scrolling their phone. The headline is The Quiet Billionaire. How Sophie Chen Built Streaming's Secret Empire. Victoria turned to me, her face cycling through emotions. Shock, confusion, anger, disbelief. You let us think. I tried to tell you. Multiple times. But you said you worked at a startup. I do. I founded it. Marcus was reading his phone, his confident expression crumbling. This article says. It says you turned down a $6 billion acquisition offer from Google last year. $6.2 billion. It wasn't enough. Not enough. His voice cracked. My father's entire fund is $2 billion and he's worked 40 years. Sophie Chen's company processes over 3 trillion data points daily, the TV anchor continued. Her technology has fundamentally changed how 2 billion people discover and consume content. A new voice came from near the entrance. Miss Chen. A woman in a sharp blazer approached, followed by a camera crew. She held a microphone with a CNN logo. I'm Rachel Kim from CNN Business. We've been trying to reach you all day. Would you be willing to give us a statement about the IPO? Every eye in the reception hall fixed on me. This really isn't the time, I said. This is my sister's wedding. We understand, but this is the biggest business story of the year. You're trending #1 globally on Twitter. The public wants to hear from you. Victoria made a strangled sound. Another reporter appeared, this one from Bloomberg. Then another from the Wall Street Journal. My PR team must have let slip which wedding I was attending. Miss Chin, is it true you started the company with only $50,000? Miss Chin, Forbes is calling you the most important tech founder since Zuckerberg. Miss Chin, what do you say to young women who want to follow in your footsteps? Security guards moved to intercept the reporters, but the damage was done. Everyone in the hall was staring. Phones were out. Pictures were being taken. Mom grabbed my arm. Why didn't you tell us? I did tell you. You didn't believe me. But you live so modestly. You dress so plain. I like being comfortable. Dad's face was red. When I asked about your job, you could have explained. I tried. You called it pretending. You offered to help me get an entry-level position. Victoria's eyes were filling with tears, her perfect makeup starting to run. You made me look like a fool. I didn't do anything, Victoria. I just answered questions honestly. Marcus was still scrolling his phone. There's an article here about your penthouse in Manhattan. Says you paid $24 million. Cash. $22 million. They got the price wrong. Jennifer leaned across the table. You own a $22 million apartment? And properties in San Francisco, London, and Tokyo, someone reading another article announced. Plus a venture capital fund with $500 million in assets. The CNN reporter persisted. Miss Chin, just one question. What drove you to build this company? I stood, smoothing my plain navy dress. I wanted to solve a problem I saw in content distribution. I studied computer science and machine learning at MIT. I identified an inefficiency in how streaming platforms matched content to viewers. I built an algorithm. It worked. I built a company around it. That's the story. But you're a billionaire at 28. The wealth is incidental. The technology matters. The problem we solved matters. The rest is just numbers. Rachel Kim's eyes gleamed. That's a great quote. Can we? No. This is my sister's wedding reception. You need to leave. But Miss Chin. No. Please. Security finally managed to escort the reporters out, but the chaos remained. Everyone was talking, phones out, pulling up articles and news coverage. Victoria and Marcus's perfect reception had transformed into a circus about someone else. Victoria stood frozen, mascara streaking her cheeks. Guests who'd been fawning over her 20 minutes ago were now craning their necks to look at me. I should go, I said quietly. You should go. Victoria's voice was shrill. You just destroyed my wedding and you think you should go? I didn't destroy anything. I came here to support you. The timing of the announcement wasn't something I could control. You could have warned us. You could have told us the truth. I did. Repeatedly. For 6 years. Mom stepped between us. Sophie, Victoria has a point. You let us believe. I let you believe what you wanted to believe. I told you I ran a successful company. You decided that meant I was failing. I told you I was happy with my career. You decided I needed rescuing. I told you the truth, Mom. You just didn't like it. Dad cleared his throat. Well, this is quite a surprise. Is it? I looked at him. Is it really surprising that I built something? That I'm good at what I do? Or is it just surprising that you finally have to acknowledge it? That's not fair. What's not fair is spending 6 years having my family treat me like a charity case while I was building one of the most valuable companies in tech. What's not fair is coming to my sister's wedding and being introduced as the family failure while my face is literally on the cover of Forbes. Marcus's phone rang. He glanced at it, his face going even paler. It's my father. You should answer, I said. He stepped away and I could hear fragments of the conversation. Didn't know. Her sister, yes. I called her startup modest. Oh God. Victoria's maid of honor appeared with tissues, trying to salvage the makeup situation. Guests were still clustered around their phones, the reception's careful choreography completely derailed. The Wall Street Journal article says you're being compared to Steve Jobs, Jennifer said, her earlier dismissiveness replaced with eager attention. It says your technology is as revolutionary as the iPhone. That's hyperbolic. It says Netflix's stock jumped 12% when they announced the depth of their partnership with Nextstream. The market overreacts. Mom touched my arm gently. Sophie, I don't understand. If you're so successful, why do you live so simply? Why don't you dress better? Why don't you talk about it? Because the work matters, not the performance. I don't need designer clothes to write better code. I don't need people to know my net worth to solve technical problems. I built something meaningful. That's enough. But we thought. You thought I was struggling because I didn't perform wealth the way Victoria does. Because I didn't brag. Because I focused on work instead of appearances. I picked up my clutch. I need to go. My team needs me for interviews. Sophie, wait. Dad reached for me. What? He struggled for words. We're proud of you? Are you? Or are you just impressed by the dollar amount? That's not. It is. If the IPO had been $100 million instead of $8 billion, you'd still be calling it a hobby. If I'd sold for $50 million and retired, you'd say I quit. The only thing that's changed is the number is big enough that you can't ignore it anymore. Victoria finally spoke, her voice small. I didn't know. I know. You could have made me understand. I tried, Victoria. For 6 years. You weren't interested in understanding. You were interested in winning. In being the successful sister. In having the better life. I gestured around the elaborate reception. You got your perfect wedding. You got your rich husband. You got everything you wanted. The only thing that's changed is you found out I wasn't the failure you needed me to be to make your success feel complete. That's not true. Isn't it? She didn't answer. Marcus returned, his face ashen. My father wants to. He'd like to discuss potential investment opportunities with Nextstream. He said our firm could. We're not seeking investment. We just went public. Right. Of course. I just meant, he'd like to meet you. Professionally. I'm sure he would. Mom dabbed at her eyes. Sophie, please don't leave angry. I'm not angry, Mom. I'm tired. I'm tired of being underestimated by the people who are supposed to know me best. I'm tired of being treated like a project that needs fixing. I adjusted my clutch. But mostly I'm just tired because I've been up since 4 a.m. for the IPO, flew 6 hours to be here, and still have a board meeting at 9 a.m. tomorrow. You flew here directly from the stock exchange? Dad asked. Of course. Victoria invited me to her wedding. I wasn't going to miss it. Even though you what? Treated me like a failure? Is that? Even though. Because that's what family does. We show up. Even when it's hard. Even when we're not appreciated. Even when we could be doing literally anything else. I walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear Victoria crying, Mom trying to comfort her, Marcus on another frantic phone call with his father. At the door, I paused and looked back. The reception hall that had been so perfectly arranged was now chaos. Guests huddled in groups, scrolling phones, watching the news coverage that was still playing on every screen. Victoria, the bride, stood in the center of it all, her perfect day unraveled. Part of me felt guilty. A small part. But the larger part, the part that had spent 6 years being dismissed, doubted, and patronized, felt something else entirely. Vindication. My phone buzzed. My assistant. Tesla's outside. CNN wants a live interview in 20 minutes. Forbes wants to move up your cover story. And your mention on Twitter just hit 2 million. I stepped out into the cool evening air. A crowd had gathered outside the hotel. Reporters, photographers, people who'd seen the news and wanted a glimpse of the suddenly famous billionaire. Miss Chin. One photo. Miss Chin. How does it feel? Miss Chin. What's next for Nextstream? A black Tesla was waiting at the curb, my driver holding the door open. I slid into the back seat and the chaos outside muted to a dull roar. My phone rang. Victoria. I let it go to voicemail. Then Mom. Then Dad. Then Marcus. All to voicemail. Finally, a text from Victoria. I'm sorry. Please. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long moment. Then I typed, not tonight. Tonight is your wedding. Enjoy it. She didn't respond. The car pulled away from the hotel. Through the tinted windows, I could see the reporters still clustered at the entrance. Inside, my family was presumably trying to salvage the reception. Tomorrow, Victoria's wedding would be remembered not for her designer dress or the 5-carat ring or the perfect venue, but as the wedding where her failure sister was revealed as a billionaire. That wasn't what I'd wanted. But it was what they'd earned. My phone rang again. Rachel Kim from CNN. This time I answered. Miss Chin, thank you for taking my call. I know tonight was complicated, but the world wants to hear your story. The real story. Not the assumptions. Not the speculation. Your story. What do you want to know? Everything. Let's start at the beginning. 6 years ago, fresh out of MIT, what made you think you could change the world? I smiled, watching the Manhattan skyline come into view through the window. I didn't think I could change the world, I said. I just thought I could solve one problem better than anyone else. Everything after that was just math. The interview lasted 90 minutes. By the time it aired the next morning, my story was everywhere. Not just the business networks but mainstream news, morning shows, social media. The narrative had crystallized. The underestimated sister who'd quietly built an empire while her family dismissed her dreams. My phone filled with messages. Interview requests. Partnership proposals. Speaking invitations. And, eventually, more messages from family. Victoria, everyone's talking about you, not my wedding. I hope you're happy. I didn't respond. Mom, please call. We need to talk about this properly. I didn't respond. Dad, your mother is very upset. This isn't how family treats each other. To that one I responded, you're absolutely right. He didn't seem to catch the irony. 3 days later, Forbes hit newsstands with my face on the cover. The headline, The Invisible Billionaire, How Sophie Chen Built Tech's Secret Empire While Her Family Thought She Was Broke. The article was fair, thorough, and devastating. It included the quote from Marcus about startups failing, Victoria's comment about my little internet hobby, and my parents' offer to loan me money while I was literally preparing for a multi-billion-dollar IPO. Mom called 17 times that day. I answered on the 18th. Sophie, please. You're making us look like monsters. I'm not making you look like anything, Mom. I just told the truth. But the way they wrote it is accurate. People are saying terrible things. Your father's colleagues are asking questions. Victoria's friends are posting on social media. Marcus's father is. He's very upset. I imagine he is. This isn't fair to your sister. It was her wedding. Her special day. It was. And she spent it introducing me as the family failure while I was on the Forbes billionaire list. How is that fair, Mom? Silence. We didn't know, she finally said. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. What do you want from us, Sophie? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. We're all sorry. Will that fix this? I don't want an apology, Mom. I want you to understand why this happened. I want you to see that for 6 years, you chose to believe I was failing rather than accept I might be succeeding. I want you to ask yourself why you needed me to be the struggling daughter so badly that you ignored every piece of evidence to the contrary. That's not, we were just worried. No, Mom. You were comfortable. It was easier to have one successful daughter and one that needed saving. It made Victoria's choices look better and gave you a project to fix. But I never needed fixing. I just needed my family to believe in me. He started crying. I do believe in you. Now you do. Now that everyone else does. Now that it's on TV and in Forbes and impossible to deny. But when it was just me telling you about my company, showing you my work, trying to share my success, you didn't believe me then. And that's the difference, Mom. That's the part that hurts. I hung up. The story took on a life of its own. Think pieces about family dynamics and success. Articles about women in tech and the double standards they face. Discussions about how we define achievement and who we choose to believe. Victoria deleted her social media accounts. Marcus's father's firm issued a statement about supporting emerging tech leaders that everyone recognized as damage control. My parents stopped calling. But the world kept spinning. Nextstream's stock stabilized at a valuation that made us one of the top 100 companies in the world. I hired 200 more employees. We signed 3 new major platform deals. The technology continued improving, the problems continued getting solved, and the work that had always mattered most, continued. 6 months later, Victoria called. Not texted. Called. I answered. Hi, she said. Hi. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Sorry. Not sorry that I got caught or sorry that it became public. Sorry that I treated you that way. I waited. I was jealous, she continued. I think I always was. You were smarter, more driven, more passionate about your work. I built my life around looking successful. Around marrying the right person and living in the right neighborhood and having the right friends. And you just did something meaningful. Something real. And I hated that. I hated that you didn't need the performance. Thank you for saying that. I don't expect you to forgive me. or to come to family events, or to have a relationship with me. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I'm sorry. I don't hate you, Victoria. You should. Maybe. But I don't. It's sad. Sad that we could have been close. Sad that you felt like my success was a threat instead of something to celebrate. Sad that it took public humiliation for you to see me clearly. Me too. We talked for an hour. It didn't fix everything. But it was a start. Mom and Dad took longer. A year later they showed up at my office in Manhattan. Unannounced. Unexpected. We'd like to see what you built, Dad said simply. I gave them the tour. Showed them the technology, introduced them to my team, explained the problems we were solving. They asked questions. Real questions. Interested questions. At the end, Mom hugged me. I'm proud of you. I should have said that 6 years ago. I should have said it every day. I'm proud of you, Sophie. It didn't erase the years of dismissal. But it was something. Marcus reached out about investment opportunities twice more before finally accepting that Nextstream wasn't interested. His father's firm eventually did invest in one of our competitors, which we acquired 18 months later for $900 million. The wedding photos from Victoria's reception occasionally still surface on social media, usually with captions like, "The moment a family realized they'd been wrong for 6 years," or "When the failure sister turns out to be a billionaire." Victoria handles it with more grace than I expected. As for me, I'm still in my Manhattan penthouse, still wearing simple clothes, still solving problems, still building. The only difference is now when I tell people I run a tech company, they believe me. And when my family introduces me, they lead with, "This is Sophie. She's doing some incredible things." Not meet the family failure. Not still playing entrepreneur. Just the truth. Finally. Hi everyone, my name is Rachel. I'm 31 years old. For 8 years I was the backbone of Harrison Technologies. Not officially. Not in any title that appeared on business cards or conference room nameplates. But every major client knew my direct line. Every critical deadline lived in my calendar. Every crisis, technical, financial, operational, ended up on my desk with a post-it note reading, "Rachel will fix this." And I did. Every single time. I started at Harrison Technologies the summer after graduate school. 23 years old, MBA fresh in hand, ready to prove myself in my family's software consulting firm. My father, David Harrison, founded the company 32 years ago. Built it from a garage startup to a $230 million operation with offices in 4 cities. "You'll start in project management," he told me that first day, standing in the glass-walled conference room overlooking the city. "Learn the business from the ground up. That's how leaders are made." I believed him. I worked 80-hour weeks. I learned software development, client relations, contract negotiation, vendor management. By year 2, I was managing projects worth $8 million annually. By year 4, senior developers asked for me specifically because I understood both the technical requirements and the business implications. The clients loved me, trusted me. When Meridian Industries, our largest client at $50 million annually, had a catastrophic system failure 3 years ago, they called my cell at 2 a.m. Not the CEO. Not the CTO. Me. I assembled a team. Worked 72 hours straight. We rebuilt their entire infrastructure, implemented redundancies, delivered them operational 3 days ahead of the emergency timeline. Their COO sent a handwritten letter. "Rachel Harrison saved our company. We are forever grateful." At the company celebration dinner, my father toasted the Harrison Technologies team for their collective excellence. My name wasn't mentioned. My cousin, Brandon, 29 and recently returned from his 3rd startup failure, stood beside my father and smiled like he'd contributed something beyond showing up. Brandon was my uncle's son. Charming, photogenic, good at golf and client dinners. He'd spent his 20s launching tech startups that burned through investor money before collapsing. No exits. No successes. Just expensive lessons in what not to do, funded by family money. When his last venture imploded, my uncle called my father. "Brandon needs stability. Bring him into Harrison. Let him learn from the best." The best apparently meant me. My father called me into his office on a Monday morning. "Brandon's joining the senior team. I want you to mentor him. Show him how we operate. He's family and family takes care of family." I nodded. Family takes care of family. I'd heard that phrase my entire life. The mentoring began simply enough. I walked Brandon through our project lifecycle, client management systems, technical architecture. He took notes on an iPad, asked decent questions, seemed genuinely interested in learning. Then the pattern emerged with brutal clarity. Brandon would sit in client meetings, nodding and smiling while I presented the strategies, timelines, risk assessments. Afterward, my father would clap Brandon's shoulder. "Great presence in there, son. Clients respond to that confidence." I'd pack up the projector, the handouts, the technical specifications. Drive back to the office. Implement everything we'd discussed while Brandon played foosball in the break room. When the Apex digital account nearly walked because of a pricing dispute, I spent 2 weeks renegotiating terms. Created a custom package that saved them $2.3 million over 3 years while maintaining our profit margins. The client was ecstatic. Signed a 5-year extension worth $15 million. At the quarterly board meeting, my father stood and announced, "I'm pleased to report that Brandon successfully retained the Apex account through innovative negotiation. This is the kind of strategic thinking that will drive Harrison Technologies forward." Brandon looked uncomfortable. I looked at my laptop screen where the 47-page proposal I'd written was still open. Mrs. Patterson, our CFO for 18 years, found me in the parking garage that evening. I was sitting in my car, not crying, just staring at the steering wheel. "He knows," she said through my open window. "David knows you saved Apex. The whole executive team knows. Then why does Brandon get credit? Because acknowledging your work means acknowledging he's grooming the wrong person for succession." She squeezed my shoulder through the window. "You're not invisible, Rachel. You're essential. That's different. And eventually, essential people get tired of being treated as expendable." The invisible labor continued for 8 years. I mentored Brandon. Showed him how to read technical documentation, manage difficult clients, negotiate contracts, handle vendor relationships. He learned slowly how to look competent in presentations. He never learned how to do the actual strategic work. When clients called with emergencies, they called me. When proposals needed final review at midnight, I did it. When the board requested financial projections, I built the models, then watched Brandon present them to applause. My father created a new role for Brandon in year 5. Executive Vice President of Strategic Growth. Corner office with a view. $250,000 salary. Company car. Business cards printed on heavy cardstock that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I was still Senior Project Director, at $145,000, in an interior office next to the server room where the ventilation system hummed constantly. "You're doing critical work," my father said when I asked about my own advancement. "Client-facing work. The operational foundation of this company." "I've been here 8 years, I said carefully. "I manage accounts worth $87 million. I've never lost a client. I've brought in $34 million in new business. I've mentored every senior hire for the past 4 years, including Brandon. And we appreciate that enormously. But Rachel, leadership isn't just about technical excellence. It's about vision, market positioning. Brandon has that natural executive presence clients respect. Brandon, who'd asked me last week what API stood for. Brandon, who'd missed a critical client presentation because he was hungover from a networking event. Brandon, who still forwarded me emails asking, "How should I respond to this?" But Brandon played golf with my father every Saturday. Brandon made my uncle laugh at family dinners. Brandon was the son my father never had. I was just the daughter who made it all work behind the curtain. The breaking point came on a Thursday in March. My father called an all-hands meeting for 4 p.m. Unusual timing. Most announcements came Monday mornings. I assumed it was about the Meridian contract renewal I'd been negotiating. We'd just finalized terms. $65 million over 4 years, up from their current $50 million. The largest single contract in company history. The main floor filled with employees. 143 people, from senior architects to junior developers. My father stood at the center with Brandon beside him, wearing a navy suit I recognized from the shopping trip where I'd helped him pick professional attire. "Thank you all for gathering," my father began. "Today marks a pivotal moment for Harrison Technologies." He talked about legacy, innovation, the need for bold leadership to guide us into the next decade of growth. I watched colleagues taking notes, nodding, assuming this was another corporate vision speech. Which is why, my father continued, his voice swelling with pride, I'm thrilled to announce that Brandon Harrison will be stepping into the role of Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately. The room erupted in applause. Professional. Expected. Scripted. I sat frozen in my chair. CEO. Not CEO. Not president. CEO, the role that controlled everything. Strategy. Operations. Client relationships. The future of the company. The role I'd been doing unofficially for 3 years. Brandon brings fresh perspective and natural leadership instincts to this position, my father said, beaming. I'll be transitioning to executive chairman, providing guidance while Brandon leads us forward. Brandon stood, shook hands, accepted congratulations. His eyes found mine across the room. Something flickered there, guilt, maybe, or apology, before the smile returned. After the meeting, I walked back to my office. Sat down at my desk. Stared at the email I'd been drafting to Meridian's CEO about our new contract terms. $65 million. I'd negotiated every term. Built the technical specifications. Designed the implementation timeline. And Brandon, who couldn't explain our core service offerings without a script, would now take credit for it all. My father appeared in my doorway 30 minutes later. I need you to transition your major accounts to Brandon over the next month, he said. Not asked. Stated. Meridian especially. You've built strong relationships there. I want you to ensure Brandon has everything he needs to maintain those connections. My relationships, I repeated softly. The company's relationships, Rachel. You understand? This is about continuity. Brandon will need your institutional knowledge to succeed. Something inside me, something that had been bending for 8 years, snapped clean. And what's my new role? I asked. You'll continue as Senior Project Director. Your work is invaluable. Just because Brandon is CEO doesn't diminish your. After 8 years. After managing $87 million in accounts. After bringing in $34 million in new business. After negotiating the largest contract in company history. After mentoring Brandon himself for 3 years. After all that, I remain Senior Project Director in an office next to the server room, and Brandon, who asks me how to spell infrastructure, is CEO. My father's expression hardened. This isn't about keeping score. Brandon has qualities you lack. Executive presence. Strategic vision. Gravitas. You're an excellent operator, Rachel, but you're not leadership material. You never have been. He walked away. Not leadership material. I stared at my computer screen. Let those words settle into something sharp and clarifying. Mrs. Patterson appeared an hour later with tea. Set it on my desk without speaking. When she turned to leave, she paused. My former colleague runs talent acquisition at Novak Solutions, she said quietly. They've been trying to poach Harrison's senior people for 2 years. I could make an introduction if you wanted. I looked up at her. She smiled sadly, knowingly. Just something to think about, she said. That night, I sat in my apartment with my laptop and the files I'd been keeping for years. Not intentionally, just professionally. Documentation was my nature. Every client account I managed. Every contract I negotiated. Every crisis I resolved. Every late night, every weekend, every holiday I worked while Brandon posted Instagram stories from ski trips and beach resorts. The numbers were staggering. In 8 years, I'd brought in $34 million in new business. I'd maintained a 98% client retention rate. I'd managed implementations for 23 major projects with 0 failures. I'd trained 16 employees who'd been promoted past me. I'd built Harrison Technologies' reputation for excellence, and my reward was watching someone else wear the crown I'd crafted. The email from Novak Solutions arrived the next morning. Subject: Confidential opportunity, Chief Strategy Officer position. I almost deleted it. Loyalty. Family. My father's voice about commitment and gratitude and taking care of each other. I opened it instead. Dear Ms. Harrison. Your reputation in the tech consulting space is exceptional. Novak Solutions is expanding our enterprise division and believes your expertise would be transformative. We'd like to discuss a Chief Strategy Officer position with full autonomy, equity participation and compensation reflecting your actual market value. Would you be available for a confidential conversation? Best regards, Catherine Novak. Founder and CEO Novak Solutions. I stared at the screen. Read it 4 times. Then I replied, available tomorrow evening 7 p.m. Catherine Novak's office was minimalist elegance. Clean lines, natural light, art that suggested actual curation rather than corporate purchasing. She was 46, sharp-eyed, direct. She offered espresso from a machine that probably cost more than my car. I've been watching your career for 3 years, Catherine said without preamble. Every major win at Harrison has your signature on it. The Meridian save. The Apex renegotiation. The Stellar Systems implementation that came in under budget and ahead of schedule. You're the strategic brain of that operation. My father would disagree. Your father is protecting his investment in his nephew's career advancement. Catherine's tone was matter-of-fact, not cruel. I'm not interested in his feelings. I'm interested in results. And you consistently deliver results that exceed projections. She slid a folder across the desk. I opened it. The offer was breathtaking. Chief Strategy Officer. $520,000 base salary. Performance bonuses up to $200,000 annually. Equity worth $1.2 million when fully vested. Full autonomy over strategic initiatives. My own team. An office with windows. Real windows. Why me? I asked. Because you don't need a seat at someone else's table, Catherine said. You build the tables. You've just been forced to pretend someone else built them. I'm offering you a place where your name goes on your work. I thought about my father's words. Not leadership material. I'll need to give notice, I said. Take whatever time you need. I want you rested and ready, not burned out and bitter. Catherine smiled. Although I won't pretend I'm not looking forward to Harrison scrambling when they realize what they've lost. I signed the offer letter that night. Gave notice the next morning. My father's face went through several colors I'd never seen on human skin. You're leaving? No. Right when Brandon is transitioning into his new role. That's exactly why I'm leaving. He should learn to run the company he's been made CEO of. This is betrayal. After everything this family has given you, after everything I've built for you. You built this company on my work, Dad. You just gave credit to Brandon. Novak Solutions is giving me a title that matches my contributions and compensation that reflects my actual value. This was the easiest decision I've ever made. You'll regret this, my father said, voice shaking. You can't just abandon your family. I'm not abandoning family. I'm leaving a company that treats me like support staff while giving executive titles to someone who still asks me to explain basic concepts. Brandon appeared in the doorway. Rachel, wait. Maybe we can restructure. Make you president or chief operating officer or, I repeated. 8 years of doing your work, Brandon. 8 years of mentoring you while you took credit. 8 years of watching you get promoted past me for work I did. And now that I'm leaving, suddenly there's room to restructure. I didn't ask for this, Brandon said quietly. No. But you took it anyway. You stood in boardrooms and accepted applause for strategies I created. You could have said something. You never did. I picked up the box with my desk belongings, not much after 8 years. A plant Mrs. Patterson had given me. Photos from client events where I was always in the background. The handwritten note from Meridian thanking me for saving their company. Mrs. Patterson met me in the lobby. Pressed an envelope into my hands. Open it later, she said. And Rachel, you're going to be extraordinary. Come back and tell me about it. I left without looking back at the building. Just walked to my car, put the box in the trunk, drove away from 8 years of invisible labor. The envelope contained a $1,000 check and a note. Asterisk, not charity. An investment in someone who always should have been CEO. Make them regret it. Asterisk. At Novak Solutions everything was different. I had an office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. A team of 8 strategists who reported directly to me. Projects with my name in bold at the top of every proposal. Lead strategist. Rachel Harrison, Chief Strategy Officer. The first time Catherine asked my opinion in a leadership meeting, I waited for someone to interrupt. To explain what I really meant. To simplify my technical language for the room. No one did. Catherine just nodded and said, solid analysis. Let's build on that framework. My direct report, Sarah, scheduled weekly one-on-ones not to micromanage but to ask genuine questions. What resources do you need? How can I support your initiatives? What obstacles should I clear? When I delivered my first major strategy presentation, a market expansion plan for our enterprise division, the board applauded. Catherine sent a company-wide email. This is what strategic excellence looks like. Rachel Harrison just mapped our next 3 years of growth. This is leadership. I cried in the parking garage afterward. Not from sadness. From the startling, disorienting relief of being seen. Of being valued. Of having my work acknowledged with my name attached to it. My therapist, Dr. Singh, helped me process the transition. You're grieving, she said during our second session. Not the job. The relationship with your father that you wanted but never had. He's called 23 times, I said. I haven't answered. That's boundary setting. How does it feel? Terrifying. But also peaceful. Both can coexist. Dr. Singh handed me a worksheet on boundary scripts. Remember, no is a complete sentence. You don't owe explanations for protecting your well-being. The evidence folder helped. I'd kept everything: emails, project documentation, client testimonials, my personal spreadsheet tracking 8 years of contributions. Every time doubt crept in. Maybe I'm being selfish, maybe I should have stayed, maybe he was right about me not being leadership material. I opened that folder. The data said, you were always a leader. He just refused to see it. 2 months into my role at Novak, the earthquake hit Harrison Technologies. It started with Meridian Industries. Their CEO James Whitfield called me directly. My personal cell. The number I'd given him 3 years ago during the infrastructure crisis. With instructions to call anytime, day or night. Rachel, I need to talk to you about something sensitive. Of course, James. What's happening? We finalized the contract renewal with Harrison last month. $65 million over 4 years. You negotiated every term, designed the implementation plan. Now we're dealing with Brandon and... He paused. Rachel, he doesn't understand our technical requirements. He can't answer basic questions about the architecture you designed. We've tried to work with him, but after 3 meetings where he promised to get back to us on fundamental details, we're concerned. I'm sorry you're experiencing that, I said carefully. I'm calling because Meridian wants to move our account to Novak Solutions. You're there. We don't want Harrison Technologies. We want you. You've always been our real partner. We're just following the expertise. I thought about loyalty. Family. The right thing to do. Then I thought about 8 years of invisible labor and my father calling me not leadership material. Let me connect you with Catherine Novak, our CEO. We'd be honored to work with Meridian. The meeting happened 48 hours later. Catherine, James Whitfield, Meridian's CTO, their CFO, and me. We spent 3 hours reviewing their needs. I presented the implementation framework I'd already designed, the one Brandon couldn't explain to them. This is exactly what we need, James said. The expertise, the attention to detail, the strategic thinking. This is what we thought we were getting from Harrison. He looked at me directly. Rachel, you saved our company 3 years ago. You've guided every major technology decision since then. We want to continue that partnership. But we want it official. We want it with you where you're actually valued. Meridian signed with Novak the following week. $65 million over 4 years. The largest contract in Novak Solutions history. Catherine promoted me to Executive Vice President of Strategic Accounts on the spot. Added another $100,000 to my base salary. Gave me equity worth an additional $800,000. You just transformed this company, Catherine said. This contract validates everything we're building. You're not just an employee, Rachel. You're a cornerstone. My phone exploded with messages that evening. Brandon first. Rachel, we need to talk urgently. Meridian just canceled. Dad is. Please call me. Then board members from Harrison. We should schedule a meeting. Discuss possibilities for collaboration. Then my father. You poached our biggest client. This is industrial sabotage. This is theft. I blocked the number. Dr. Singh had prepared me for this moment. They'll escalate when they realize they can't control you anymore. Expect commands, then guilt, then threats, then desperate bargaining. Don't engage unless you choose to. I didn't choose to. Catherine, however, was thrilled. One of the top 5 consulting firms in the region just lost their anchor client to us. Rachel, you're not just good at this work. You're transformational. The second defection came 3 weeks later. Apex Digital, the account I'd saved with custom pricing. Their VP of technology called me directly. Rachel, I'm going to be blunt. Since you left, Harrison's service quality has collapsed. Brandon doesn't understand our technical stack. He missed 2 quarterly reviews. When we raised concerns about our roadmap, he assured us the team would handle it, but no one contacted us. We don't want teams. We want the person who actually understands our business. We want you. Apex brought their $15 million contract to Novak. The third defection made industry headlines. Stellar Systems moves $22 million account to Novak Solutions, following strategic excellence. The article quoted Stellar CEO. We partnered with Harrison Technologies because of Rachel Harrison's strategic vision. When she moved to Novak Solutions, the choice was obvious. Expertise matters more than company legacy. My phone became unusable. Messages flooded in. Brandon, no longer professional. Rachel, please. You're destroying us. Dad's having panic attacks. We've lost $102 million in contracts. We need help. Board members increasingly desperate. We should discuss terms for your return. Name your price. My uncle, you're tearing this family apart. Brandon looks 10 years older. Your father can't sleep. How can you be so cold? I blocked the numbers one by one. Mrs. Patterson texted. *7 senior people quit this week. Including me. Brandon is in over his head and David won't admit it. The whole company is chaos. But you're thriving. Proud of you, Rachel. Catherine called a company meeting. Announced that Novak Solutions had grown 43% in 3 months. That we were opening a new office. That our client retention was 100%. That Rachel Harrison's leadership had transformed the company's trajectory. This, Catherine said, gesturing to me, is what happens when you recognize and reward actual talent instead of trying to fit square pegs into round holes because of nepotism. The entire company applauded. For me. For my work. For leadership that was finally, officially acknowledged. Month 4 brought the desperate phase. My father and Brandon showed up at Novak's offices. Security called up. Catherine came to my office first. 2 men claiming to be family. Want me to have them removed. I considered it. How easy to simply refuse. To let them wait in the lobby experiencing what I'd experienced for 8 years. Being invisible, dismissed, not worth time. But Dr. Singh's voice. Closure isn't something they give you. Something you create for yourself. I'll meet them in the cafe downstairs, I said. Public space. 30 minutes maximum. We sat at a corner table. Glass walls. Other professionals working around us. Witnesses. My father looked diminished somehow. Older. Thinner. Brandon looked exhausted with dark circles under his eyes. Thank you for seeing us, my father began. I waited. We may have underestimated your contributions to the company, he said carefully. Legal language. Precise. We'd like to discuss you returning as President and Chief Operating Officer. Substantial compensation increase. Real authority. Brandon would remain CEO, but you'd handle all strategic operations. What's substantial? I asked. $350,000 base. Plus performance bonuses. Plus equity. I almost laughed. $350,000. Novak pays me $620,000 base. I have equity worth $2 million. I have a team that respects me. I have a CEO who values my input. I have clients who followed me because they trust my expertise. Why would I take a massive pay cut to return to a company where I'd still report to someone who doesn't understand basic technical concepts? I was wrong, my father said quietly. About the leadership material comment. I see now that you were leading all along. Brandon needed the opportunity. He needed to prove himself. And I didn't need opportunities. I didn't need anyone to believe in me. Silence. You built a company that couldn't function without the person you refused to acknowledge, I said evenly. That's not my failure, Dad. That's yours. Brandon spoke for the first time. I told Dad you should have been CEO. I said it after the announcement. But he insisted I was ready and I wanted to believe him. I wanted to prove I could do it. I know, I said. And I did. Brandon wasn't malicious. Just weak. Just willing to accept what he hadn't earned because it was easier than confrontation. But you took the position anyway. You stood in meetings and accepted praise for work I did. You could have insisted I be promoted alongside you. You didn't. We're losing everything, my father said, voice cracking. We've lost $102 million in contracts. 30% of our staff. Investors are pulling funding. If we don't turn this around in 45 days, we're filing bankruptcy. Then hire a qualified strategist. There are excellent ones in the market. Rachel, please. My father's composure broke. I'm asking you to save the company. I'm asking you to come back. To help us survive. I looked at him. This man who'd built a company but refused to see the daughter who'd sustained it. Who'd handed my cousin an executive title for work I'd done. Who'd called me not leadership material while I operated at an executive level for years. You had 8 years to ask for my help while valuing it, I said softly. You used those years to tell me I wasn't enough. That Brandon was better. That executive presence mattered more than actual results. I believed you until I found a company that judged me on merit. And then I built something without you. Something where my work has my name on it. Where my success is acknowledged. Where I'm not invisible. So you're just going to let everything we built collapse? My father asked bitterly. We built? I looked at him steadily. The data shows I brought in $34 million over 8 years. I maintained 98% client retention. I managed 23 major implementations. I mentored your staff. I resolved every crisis. I negotiated every major contract. I held that company together while you gave Brandon credit for my achievements. I stood picking up my bag. What you built was a company dependent on labor you refused to credit. What I built is a career where my contributions are recognized and rewarded. We're both living with our choices. I walked away. Didn't look back. Through the glass wall I saw them sitting there. Father and son. Looking lost. The article appeared 5 weeks later. From shadow to spotlight. How one executive rebuilt her career after family betrayal. The Regional Business Journal had contacted me about featuring rising leaders in tech consulting. I'd hesitated, but Catherine encouraged it. Your story matters, she said. There are countless people working in family businesses, being told they're not enough while doing executive-level work. They need to know they can leave. That they're not trapped. The interview was thorough and fair. The journalist did excellent research, including talking to former Harrison employees and clients. I spent 8 years being told I wasn't leadership material while operating as the company's chief strategist, Harrison explains. The clients knew it. The staff knew it. The only people who didn't acknowledge it were the ones benefiting from my invisibility. The article detailed my role at Novak, the clients who'd followed me, my upcoming keynote at the National Technology Leadership Conference. It went viral in business circles. My inbox flooded with messages from people in similar situations. Daughters in family businesses. Sons overlooked for younger siblings. Employees watching less qualified relatives get promoted. Thank you for speaking up. I'm in the exact situation. Your story gave me courage. 15 years doing my brother's work. This helped me see I'm not crazy. I left my family's company last month after reading this. Already have 3 offers. Brandon sent one text. The article was hard to read. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't respond. My father sent one final email. You've humiliated this family publicly. Made us look incompetent. Don't expect forgiveness. I replied. I don't expect it. I don't need it. Then I blocked the address permanently. The bankruptcy filing was announced 6 weeks before the National Technology Leadership Conference. Harrison Technologies files Chapter 11. Regional tech firm crumbles after talent exodus. The article was detailed. Client losses totaling $102 million. Staff departures, 43 employees in 4 months. Failed investor negotiations. The building lease terminated. David Harrison stepping down. Brandon Harrison, position eliminated. I felt a distant sadness. Not satisfaction. Not guilt. Just melancholy for what could have been if my father had made different choices 8 years ago. Mrs. Patterson called. How are you processing the news? I'm okay. Really? Is that strange? No, honey. It means you've healed. You've built something new. The old chapter is just closed now. He was right. I built something new. At Novak, I just closed a $47 million contract with an international manufacturing firm. Catherine was creating a new role, Chief Innovation Officer. My team had grown to 15 people, all of whom I mentored the way I wished I'd been mentored, with recognition, opportunities, and credit for their work. Tom, one of my senior strategists, brought his family to the office when I promoted him to director. His mother hugged him, tears streaming. We always knew you were brilliant, she said. We're so proud. I excused myself, went to the restroom, cried for 5 minutes, returned smiling. Dr. Singh helped me understand it. You're not grieving what you lost. You're grieving what you never had, a father who could see your worth. Will it always hurt? It'll hurt less. And eventually you'll realize the freedom is worth more than the fantasy. The National Technology Leadership Conference was held in a convention center with 3,000 attendees. I was the opening keynote. Topic: Leading from wherever you are, recognizing and claiming your value. Catherine adjusted my lapel mic backstage. Nervous. Terrified. Good. It means you care. She smiled. Go show them what not leadership material actually looks like. I walked on stage to applause. Scan the massive audience. In the back, partially hidden behind a column, were my father and Brandon. Both in business casual. No suits, a departure from the executive uniforms they'd always worn. My father looked haggard. Brandon looked like he'd aged 5 years. I could have had security remove them. I could have ignored them completely. Instead, I began my speech. 8 years ago, I worked for a company that told me I wasn't leadership material. I believed them until I realized that judgment came from people who couldn't run their own company without the person they refused to promote. I talked about invisible labor, documentation, knowing your worth in measurable terms, recognizing when you're building someone else's empire while your own potential withers in the shadows. I was told I lacked executive presence, I said, looking directly at my father. By someone who gave my cousin a CEO position based on family connection rather than competence. And when I left, taking my expertise and my client relationships, the company collapsed. Not because I sabotaged anything, but because the foundation was one person pretending to lead while another person did the actual work. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. Here's what I learned. Your value isn't determined by who refuses to see it. Your potential isn't limited by who underestimates you. And loyalty to people who exploit you isn't virtue, it's self-betrayal. I talked about Catherine saying you build the tables. About Sarah asking what I needed instead of telling me what to do. About clients who followed me because they valued expertise over company logos. If you're in a situation where your contributions are invisible, document everything. Build your evidence folder. Track your wins. And when you're ready, don't threaten, don't negotiate, just walk. Find a place where your name goes on your work. Where your voice carries weight. Where you're not just the engine keeping someone else's career running. The standing ovation lasted 90 seconds. People crowded around afterward, sharing their stories, asking questions, thanking me for giving them language for their experiences. My father and Brandon approached as the crowd thinned. Security noticed, moved forward. I waved them off. That speech, my father said quietly. You were talking about me. I was talking about systems that prioritize connection over competence. You were an example. I never realized how much of the company's success came from you. You didn't want to realize it, Dad. Acknowledgement would have meant admitting you'd promoted the wrong person. That family loyalty blinded you to merit. Brandon looked at his hands. For what it's worth, Rachel, everything you said was true. I wasn't ready. I'm in leadership training now. Starting over. Learning to actually do the work instead of taking credit for it. Good, I said sincerely. You'll be better for it. My father met my eyes. Something that might have been pride, might have been regret, flickered there. You've built something remarkable. I see that now. I know you do. Now that it's too late to matter. Is there any possibility? He stopped. Started again. Could we rebuild our relationship? I can't change the past, but maybe. Dad, I forgive you. The words surprised me, but they felt true. I forgive you for not seeing my worth. For choosing Brandon because he was easier to love. For calling me inadequate while relying on my competence. I forgive all of it. Hope flickered in his expression. But forgiveness isn't reconciliation, I continued gently. It isn't access. It isn't relationship restoration. You can be forgiven and still not be part of my life. Those are separate decisions. I'm your father. You are. And I hope you build something new. Something where you value people's contributions regardless of their last name. But I've built my own table now. There's no seat here for people who spent years telling me I didn't deserve one. I turned to leave. Paused. Thank you though. For giving Brandon the CEO position. If you'd promoted me, I'd never have left. I'd never have discovered what I could build without you. So genuinely, thank you for showing me I didn't need your validation to lead. I walked away. This time I looked back once. They stood there, father and son, watching me disappear into a crowd of professionals who respected my expertise, valued my leadership, and knew my name. 8 months later, I launched my own consulting firm, Harrison Strategic Consulting. Not to compete with my father. Not for revenge. But because Catherine had said something profound. Asterisk, you've always built the tables. Now build your own company. Asterisk. I did. Built a firm that valued documentation, credited contributions, promoted based on results. I hired Mrs. Patterson as CFO. Tom came over from Novak as VP of Operations. Sarah joined as Senior Strategist. We were small, 12 people, but profitable, ethical, growing rapidly. Meridian Industries became our anchor client. Apex Digital joined. Stellar Systems. 3 new Fortune 500 companies that had never worked with Harrison Technologies. First-year revenue, $28 million. My father sent a card. Asterisk, congratulations on your firm. I'm proud of you, asterisk. I read it. Filed it away. Didn't respond. Brandon sent flowers. Asterisk, you were right about everything. Starting from the bottom is humbling. Good luck with your company. Asterisk. I sent a brief thank you email. Professional. Distant. Catherine called to congratulate me. You did it. Built something with your name on it. Literally. I did. Any regrets? I thought about it. About the 8 years at Harrison Technologies. The invisible labor. The interior office next to the server room. The speech where my father called me inadequate. No regrets, I said. Everything led here. On Sunday morning I went to the office alone. Walked through the empty space. 12 offices, conference rooms, a kitchen where we actually talked to each other like humans, not corporate personas. My office had floor-to-ceiling windows. A view of the harbor. My name on the door. Rachel Harrison, founder and CEO. The title my father said I'd never be qualified for. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, then looked at the message. Asterisk, this is David. Saw the article about your firm's success. $28 million first year. You were always capable of this. I'm sorry I couldn't see it. Asterisk. I stared at the screen. Waited for the familiar ache of wanting his approval, his pride, his acknowledgement. It didn't come. Instead I felt complete. Whole. Successfully independent. I typed. Asterisk, I appreciate that. I hope you're well. Asterisk. Then I blocked the number. Not from anger. From boundaries. From understanding that some doors close not because of hatred, but because keeping them open means staying tethered to versions of ourselves that no longer exist. I sat at my desk. Opened my laptop. Reviewed the proposal for our next major client. A $52 million contract that would make us one of the fastest growing consulting firms in the region. Outside my window, the harbor glittered in morning light. Boats moved purposefully across the water. The city hummed with life and possibility. The building at Harrison Technologies had gone dark. The logo removed. The lease terminated. But here in 12 offices filled with people who respected each other, every light blazed bright. I built this table. I built all of it. And my name was on everything. Hi everyone, my name is Sophie. I'm 29 years old. I need to tell you about the Sunday dinner that ended everything, because some moments are so perfectly crystalline in their cruelty that they change the entire trajectory of your life. My sister Rachel was visiting from Boston. She'd flown in Friday and Mom had been cooking for 2 days straight. Her famous pot roast, homemade rolls, the works. Rachel was the golden child, the responsible one, the daughter who'd made something of herself, with her MBA and her consulting job and her perfectly highlighted hair. I'd driven over from my studio apartment after closing the coffee shop where I worked weekends. My weekday job was at a nonprofit making $38,000 a year doing community outreach. I smelled like espresso and exhaustion. Rachel was showing everyone photos on her tablet. "This is the property we're looking at in Newton," she said, swiping through images of a renovated Victorian with a wraparound porch. 4 bedrooms, original hardwood, the neighborhood is perfect. "How much?" Dad asked, leaning in with that expression he reserved exclusively for Rachel. Proud, engaged, present. $850,000, Rachel said. "We've been pre-approved, but the down payment is steep. Even with Jacob's signing bonus, we're about $200,000 short of what we'd need for the full 20% down." Mom and Dad exchanged a look. One of those married couple telepathic conversations that happens in 3 seconds flat. "We can help with that," Dad said. I stopped cutting my pot roast. The knife hung suspended over the plate. "Dad, no," Rachel said, but her voice had that practiced protest quality. The kind that means, "Convince me." "That's too much." "You're responsible," Mom said firmly. "You've always been responsible. You finished your MBA, you married well, you've built a real career. This is what we've been saving for, to invest in our children's futures when they've earned it." "When they've earned it," I repeated quietly. 5 heads turned toward me like I'd fired a starting pistol. "Something to say, Sophie?" Dad asked. His warmth from 2 seconds ago had evaporated completely. "I was just wondering what the criteria are," I said. My voice stayed level through years of practice. "For earning investment." "Rachel has demonstrated fiscal responsibility," Dad said, using his boardroom voice. "She has a career path. She's made smart choices. She's proven she can handle money wisely." "And I haven't?" I asked. "You work at a coffee shop," Mom said like I'd confessed to drug trafficking. "You have a degree in environmental science that you're not using. You're 29 and you share an apartment. What exactly have you proven, Sophie?" "I asked for help with my student loans 3 years ago," I said. The pot roast was getting cold on my plate. "I had $47,000 at 7.2% interest. You said no. Because you chose to study something unmarketable," Dad said. "Environmental science. We told you to study business or medicine. You made your choice. You live with the consequences." "Rachel's MBA cost $120,000, I said. "You paid for all of it. Because Rachel chose wisely," Mom cut in, defensive now. "She chose a degree with ROI. Return on investment, Sophie. Do you understand that concept?" My hands felt very cold. "I asked for $8,000 to take an agricultural business certificate program last year. You said it was a waste of money." "It would have been," Dad said flatly. "Farming? In this economy? You're living in a fantasy world, Sophie. You always have been. Rachel lives in reality. That's the difference. The difference is you decided I was a failure when I was 16, I said quietly, and you've been confirming that decision ever since." "Don't be dramatic," Rachel said. Her first words to me directly all evening. "Mom and Dad are just being practical. When you graduated high school they bought you a car," I said, looking at her. "When I graduated they gave me a Target gift card. When you finished your MBA they took you to Italy. When I finished my bachelor's we went to Applebee's. You got an allowance through college. I worked 3 jobs. You're just jealous," Rachel said, and her voice had an edge now. "You're jealous that I made something of myself and you didn't." The room tilted slightly. Not metaphorically. The actual dining room seemed to shift. "You know what?" I stood up. My napkin fell to the floor. "You're right. I am jealous. I'm jealous that you got parents who believed in you. I got parents who've spent 13 years telling me I'm not good enough." "Sophie, sit down," Dad commanded. "You're making a scene." "I'm making an exit," I said. "Enjoy your $200,000, Rachel. I hope the house is everything you dreamed of." "You're being a failure right now," Mom said. "This is exactly why we don't invest in you. This attitude. This ingratitude." I looked at her for a long moment. Then I picked up my purse and walked out. The April air was cool and clear. I sat in my 10-year-old Subaru with 160,000 miles and I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove. I drove to my apartment and I pulled out the file folder I kept in my closet. The one with my bank statements. $156,000 in savings. I'd been saving since I was 17. Every birthday check from grandparents. Every Christmas cash. Every paycheck from every job. I lived on $1,800 a month and saved everything else. My roommate thought I was broke. My family thought I was irresponsible. No one knew I'd been preparing for exactly this moment. That night I made 4 decisions. First, I changed my phone number. Second, I blocked every family member on every platform. Third, I started searching for farmland. Fourth, I scheduled a consultation with a therapist who specialized in family trauma. Jennifer Chin lived in the apartment below mine. She was 41, had immigrated from Taiwan at 19, and ran a successful catering business. She found me on the stairs the next morning with my laptop open to farm listings. "You okay?" she asked, setting down her grocery bags. I told her everything. The dinner. The $200,000. "You're being a failure right now." She listened until I finished, then sat down beside me. "You know what my parents told me when I said I wanted to cook professionally? That I was wasting my education. That I should be a doctor or engineer. You know what I did?" "What?" "I stopped asking their permission to live my life," she said simply. "Best decision I ever made." "What do you want, Sophie?" "Not what they want. What do you want?" The answer came immediately. "A farm. I want to grow food. I want to feed people. I want to work with soil and seasons and make something real." "Then do that," Jennifer said. "You don't need their approval. You never did." 6 weeks later I found it. 55 acres in the valley, 90 minutes from the city where my family lived. The property had been a conventional dairy farm that went bankrupt. The land was depleted but recoverable. There was a farmhouse from the 1940s that needed everything, a huge barn with good bones, and a smaller outbuilding that could be converted to a farm stand. The price was $420,000. I offered $400,000 cash, close in 30 days. They accepted immediately. I kept my nonprofit job, they let me go remote 3 days a week, and I spent every other moment on that property. I hired soil consultants. I tested every acre. The land was tired, stripped from years of chemical agriculture and overgrazing, but it could be brought back with cover crops, compost, and thyme. I planted 20 acres in cover crops that first season. Rye, clover, vetch. I let it grow and then tilled it back in, feeding the soil. I read everything. I took online courses. I joined farming forums and attended workshops. Tom Rodriguez, my neighbor 4 miles west, showed up the 3rd week with the tractor attachment I needed. "Heard you're going organic," he said, climbing down from his truck. He was 56, had farmed conventionally for 30 years before transitioning to organic 5 years ago. "Smart move. Market's there if you do it right." "I don't know what I'm doing," I admitted. "Nobody does it first," he said. "I'll teach you. Come by Tuesday mornings. We'll walk my fields. I'll show you what works." So Tom became my mentor. He taught me crop rotation, companion planting, pest management without chemicals. He introduced me to the regional organic farming co-op. He showed me his spreadsheets. What crops brought the best return, which farmers markets were worth the vendor fees, how to calculate true cost of production. "Farming isn't romantic," he said during one of our Tuesday walks. "It's math and biology and weather gambling. But if you're willing to work, really work, you can make it." I started therapy with Dr. Walsh the same week I closed on the property. She specialized in complex family trauma and estrangement. "Your family's voices are in your head," she said during our second session. "Your mother saying unmarketable. Your father saying fantasy world. Your sister saying jealous. We need to evict those voices and replace them with truth." We worked on evidence folders. I documented everything. Every email I'd sent asking for help that was denied, every achievement they'd ignored, every comparison to Rachel, every dismissal. Not for revenge. For reality. So when my brain tried to tell me I was overreacting, I had proof. Protective expectations, Dr. Walsh called it. They will try to come back when they discover you're successful. We need to prepare boundaries now. I practiced boundary scripts until they felt natural. No is a complete sentence. I'm not available for that conversation. Access is earned, not presumed. The farmhouse transformation took 8 months. I learned to drywall, to tile, to install windows. I watched YouTube tutorials until 2 a.m., then practiced the next day. The house slowly came back to life. New kitchen, refinished floors, updated electrical, efficient heating. I converted the outbuilding to a farm stand with a commercial kitchen attached. I got licensed for value-added products. I learned to make jam, pickles, pesto, dried herbs. Spring came. Year 1 of actual production. I planted 15 acres in vegetables. Tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, kale, carrots, beets, squash, beans, herbs. I started small with each crop, testing what would grow well. I focused on crops that could be harvested multiple times or had long harvest windows. I hired 2 employees. Marcus, a kid aging out of foster care who needed structure and wages, and Angela, a recently divorced woman in her 50s who needed flexible hours and purpose. I paid them $24 an hour. I taught them everything Tom was teaching me. Why are you paying us so much? Marcus asked during his second week. Because your labor has value, I said. Because I know what it feels like to not be valued. Because I can afford to, and it's the right thing to do. The first farmers market was in June. I rented a booth space in the town square, the same town where my parents lived, though I didn't think about that at first. I sold out in 3 hours. The second week I brought twice as much. Sold out in 2 hours. By week 4 I had a line before I finished setting up. People loved the quality. Organic, picked at peak ripeness, varieties you couldn't get at grocery stores. I brought heirloom tomatoes in 6 colors. I brought purple carrots and golden beets. I brought herbs so fresh they still had morning dew. Where has this been all my life? One woman said, buying her 3rd bag of basil. Right here, I said. Just getting started. I added 3 more farmers markets. I started a CSA program, Community Supported Agriculture, where people could subscribe for weekly produce boxes. I got 30 members the first season. Then 50. Then 80. The farm paid for itself that first production year. Just barely, but it did. Year 2 I expanded to 30 acres in production. I added cut flowers, zinnias, sunflowers, dahlias. I added strawberries and raspberries. I started supplying 3 local restaurants with specialty produce. I hired 2 more employees. The farm stand stayed open 3 days a week and people drove from 40 miles away. I added bees with Tom's teaching. 12 hives that first year. The honey sold for $16 a jar and I couldn't keep it in stock. I added chickens for eggs. Pasture-raised, mobile coops that I moved weekly. The eggs had deep orange yolks and sold for $8 a dozen. I had a waiting list. The farm grossed $280,000 that second year. After expenses and payroll, I cleared $125,000 profit. I was 27 and I owned my land outright. I was feeding hundreds of families. I employed 6 people at fair wages. And my family had no idea. 2 years and 4 months after that Sunday dinner, my father drove past my farmer's market booth. He was running errands in town, his town where he'd lived for 30 years, and he saw the crowd. 50 people deep waiting for organic produce. He got curious. He walked over. My booth had a banner, Riverside Organic Farm, Sophie Chin, proprietor. He stood at the edge of the crowd for 5 minutes watching me. I didn't see him. I was busy helping customers, weighing tomatoes, making change, laughing with regulars who came every week. Mrs. Patterson was telling me about her grandson who wanted to be a farmer. You're such an inspiration, she said. A young woman running this whole operation. My grandson asks about you constantly. Tell him to come by the farm, I said. I do workshops for young people interested in agriculture. Then I looked up and saw him. My father. Standing at the edge of my market booth. His face was a complicated mix of shock and something else I couldn't identify. Our eyes met. I finished with Mrs. Patterson. I helped 3 more customers. My hand stayed steady through training and practice. Finally, the line cleared temporarily and he approached. Sophie, he said. Can I help you? I asked pleasantly, professionally. The same voice I used with every customer. This is yours. He gestured at the booth, the produce, the banner. Yes. I don't understand, he said. How did you buy and build a successful farm? I finished for him. About 2 years ago. With what money? The question came out sharp, suspicious. Mine, I said simply. I saved for 8 years. Bought 55 acres cash. Built a business. A customer approached with beets and carrots. I weighed them, made small talk about roasting methods, accepted payment. My father waited, visibly struggling with what to say. How much is this place worth? He finally asked. The property appraised at $2.9 million 3 months ago, I said. The business grossed $280,000 last year. This year's tracking higher. His face went pale. Literally pale. That's impossible. It's documented, I said. Tax returns. Bank statements. Appraisal letters. All very possible. Why didn't you tell us? He asked, and his voice had shifted. Softer. Calculated soft. Tell who? I asked. I don't have family contact. Sophie, don't be ridiculous. We're your parents. Are you? I asked quietly. Another customer approached and I held up one finger. One moment, please. I helped them select lettuce varieties, explained the difference between Butterhead and Romaine, sent them off happy. We should talk, Dad said when I turned back. Somewhere private. We're talking now, I said. I have a business to run. This is clearly not the place, he said, glancing at the crowd. Come to the house. Tomorrow. We'll have dinner. We'll discuss this properly. No, I said. The word landed between us like a stone in still water. Excuse me. His voice had the edge now. The authority voice. I said no, I repeated. I'm not available for that. I'm your father, he said. You can't just refuse. I can actually, I said. I have been. For 2 years. His jaw worked. Your mother has been sick over this. She's been worried sick about you. Then she should have thought about that before she called me unmarketable and ungrateful, I said evenly. Before you gave Rachel $200,000 and told me I was living in a fantasy world. We can explain that, he started. You already did, I said. At dinner. Very clearly. Rachel was responsible. Rachel earned investment. I was a failure. You were explicit. We were trying to teach you accountability, he said. A laugh escaped before I could stop it. Not bitter. Just amazed. You gave your other daughter $200,000 and you call that teaching me accountability? Rachel had proven herself, he said. So have I said quietly. I just didn't need your approval to do it. Marcus appeared beside me with a crate of tomatoes to restock. Boss, we're running low on the heirlooms. Thanks, Marcus. I'll get more from the truck. I turned back to my father. I need to get back to work. Was there anything else? This conversation isn't over, Dad said. Actually, it is, I said. Have a nice day. I walked to my truck, got more tomatoes and returned to the booth. When I looked back, he was gone. My phone rang 15 minutes later. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was my mother. Sophie, your father just told me we need to talk immediately. This is unacceptable. You've been lying to us for years. Call me back right now. I deleted it. The second call came an hour later. Rachel's number. I watched it ring through. Her voicemail. Sophie, what the hell? Dad is freaking out. Mom is crying. You own a farm? You never said anything. We're family. You owe us at least an explanation. Call me back. I blocked her number. The email arrived that evening. Subject line, we need to talk, urgent. From my father. 3 paragraphs about how they deserved to know what I was doing with my life. How family doesn't hide things from family. How I was being selfish and childish. I archived it without responding. Tom found me checking irrigation that evening, watching the sun set over 30 acres of growing vegetables. You all right? He asked. My father discovered the farm today, I said. At market. Tom nodded slowly. How'd that go? He's upset I didn't tell them, I said. That I've been lying for 2 years. You haven't been lying, Tom said. You've been living. There's a difference. They want to talk, I said. They want explanations. And what do you want? Tom asked. To keep doing this, I said, gesturing at the fields. Without them in it. Then that's your answer, Tom said simply. He paused. You know, when I transitioned to organic, my brother said I was an idiot. Said I'd lose the farm within 2 years. Said I was throwing away our family legacy. He smiled slightly. Haven't spoken to him in 7 years. Farm's never been more profitable. Sometimes the people who share your blood are the ones who can't see you clearly. The courier arrived 2 days later with an envelope. Inside, a check for $200,000 and a note in my mother's handwriting. For your farm expansion. We want to invest in your success. We're proud of you. We want to be part of this. Please call us. Love, Mom and Dad. I stood in my kitchen holding that check for a long time. Then I took it to the commercial shredder in my farm office. I ran it through until the numbers became confetti. I put the shreds in an envelope with a single sentence on my farm letterhead. You can't purchase access. I mailed it back certified. The emails escalated over the next 2 weeks. My father sent a business proposal. He wanted to help me expand, offering his business expertise and connections in exchange for a partnership stake. I replied once, the farm is not for sale. Do not contact me again. My mother sent long emails about family bonds, about how she'd carried me for 9 months, about how I was breaking her heart and couldn't I see how much they'd changed. I didn't respond. Dr. Walsh had prepared me for this. The guilt trips. The historical revisionism. The sudden claims of pride after years of dismissal. They want access to your success, Dr. Walsh said during our session. Not reconciliation with you. Notice how the contact started only after they discovered what you'd built. Rachel tried a different approach. She sent photos of us as kids. Birthday parties, Halloween costumes, summer vacations. Remember when we were close? She wrote. Don't throw away our whole relationship over money. I miss you. I'm sorry if I didn't stand up for you enough. Can we please talk? I stared at those photos for a long time. Then I wrote back, the only message I'd send. We were never close, Rachel. We were cast in roles. You were the success. I was the failure. I don't want to play anymore. I hope your house is everything you wanted. I hope you're happy. But I'm happy too, and I built this without you. I'm keeping it that way. She didn't respond. Week 3 after the market discovery, my father showed up at the farm. The gate camera chimed at 7 a.m. on a Saturday. I watched him on my phone from inside the farmhouse. He stood at the entrance looking at my sign, Riverside Organic Farm, private property, no trespassing. He pressed the intercom. Sophie, I know you're there. I just want to talk. 5 minutes. Please. I pressed the button. Leave. I drove 90 minutes, he said. You can give me 5 minutes. You had 29 years, I said. You used them poorly. I'm sorry, he said, and his voice cracked slightly. Your mother and I are both sorry. We made mistakes. We can fix this. No, I said. You can't. You told me I was living in a fantasy world. You called me unmarketable. You gave Rachel $200,000 and called me a failure at the same dinner. Those aren't mistakes. That's who you chose to be. We want to make amends, he said. We want to invest in you now. We see what you've built. We're proud. You're impressed, I corrected. There's a difference. Pride would have been supporting me before I succeeded. This is just opportunism. That's not fair, he said. Neither was that Sunday dinner, I said. Neither were 13 years of telling me I wasn't good enough. I'm done keeping score. I'm just done. We're family, he said, and the desperation was clear now. No, I said quietly. Tom, who taught me farming, is family. Jennifer, who believed in me, is family. Marcus and Angela, who work beside me, are family. You're just people who hurt me consistently until I left. I turned off the intercom. I watched him stand there for 14 minutes. Then he got in his car and drove away. The voicemails continued. 23 from my mother over 2 weeks. Escalating from gentle to angry to desperate. How can you do this to us? Your father's blood pressure is through the roof. We made mistakes, but this is cruel. I blocked each new number. My sister showed up at the farmer's market 4 weeks after my father's first sighting. I saw her before she saw me, scanning the booths looking for mine. When she found it, she stood at the edge of the crowd for a long time, just watching. I helped customers. I laughed with regulars. I gave advice on pest control for home gardens. I packed produce and made change and built the community I'd created. Finally, Rachel approached during a lull. Sophie, she said. Rachel. Your booth is impressive, she said. This whole operation. Thank you. I didn't know you had it in you, she said, and I don't think she meant it the way it sounded. But that's how it landed. Neither did they, I said. That was the problem. They're devastated, Rachel said. Mom cries every day. Dad barely eats. They just want to talk to you. They want access to my success, I said. It's not the same thing. That's not fair, Rachel said. They made mistakes, but they're trying to fix them now. They're trying to benefit from what I built without them, I said. There's a difference. I don't understand why you're being so stubborn, Rachel said, frustration bleeding into her voice. So they didn't support your farm dream. So what? You succeeded anyway. Why can't you just accept their apology and move on? I looked at her for a long moment. You got $200,000 for being responsible. I got called a failure for asking for help with student loans. You got Italy for your MBA. I got Applebee's for my bachelor's. You got a car for high school graduation. I got a Target gift card. You had parents who invested in your dreams. I had parents who mocked mine. And you're asking me why I can't just accept an apology. You're holding a grudge, Rachel said. I'm holding a boundary, I corrected. There's a difference. I forgive them for my own peace. But forgiveness isn't reconciliation. It isn't access. It isn't a relationship. So that's it. Rachel asked. You're just done with all of us? I'm done being treated like I don't matter until I prove I do, I said. I'm done with conditional love. I'm done with relationships where I'm only valuable when I'm useful. A customer approached with questions about heirloom tomatoes. I turned away from Rachel and helped them select varieties, explained growing techniques, sent them off with growing tips written on the back of my business card. When I turned back, Rachel was gone. Month 6 after the discovery, a journalist contacted me. She was writing a feature on young farmers revolutionizing local food systems. Someone had recommended my operation. I agreed to the interview. I showed her the fields, the farm stand, the community kitchen. I explained my business model, my commitment to fair wages, my belief in feeding people good food at fair prices. How did you get started? She asked. I told her the truth. Not all of it, but enough. My family didn't believe in this dream, I said. They thought farming was impractical. They invested heavily in my sister's conventional career path and told me I was wasting my potential. So I saved for years, bought land, and built this without their support or knowledge. Are they proud now? She asked. I thought about that. They're impressed. Which isn't the same thing. Pride would have been believing in me before the appraisal came back at $2.9 million. The article ran in the regional Sunday magazine. Feeding the Future: How Young Farmers Are Rebuilding Local Food Systems. My story was the centerpiece. 4 pages with photos of the fields, the farm stand, me harvesting tomatoes with Marcus and Angela. The article mentioned the family dynamic briefly, tastefully. But enough. My inbox exploded with messages from strangers. This is my story too. Thank you for building something beautiful. Your farm gives me hope. My father sent one email after the article published. Subject: How could you? I didn't open it. I archived it with all the others. My mother left one voicemail from a new number. You've humiliated us publicly. Everyone we know has read that article. How dare you air our private family business? This is unforgivable. Then we're finally in agreement, I said to my empty kitchen and blocked that number too. Year 3 on the farm. 40 acres in production now. The business grossed $420,000. I cleared $200,000 profit after expenses and payroll. More than Rachel made with her MBA. Except I owned my land. I owed nothing to anyone. I employed 9 people at living wages. I added a farm-to-table dinner series, prix-fixe meals using only ingredients from the farm and neighboring farms. They sold out within hours of announcement. People drove 2 hours to eat at communal tables in my barn under string lights. I started hosting school field trips. Kids learned where food came from, put their hands in soil, harvested vegetables to take home. I charged schools nothing. It was an investment in the future. Marcus got accepted to state school for sustainable agriculture with a full scholarship. I never thought I'd go to college, he told me, crying. You showed me it was possible. You showed yourself, I said. I just gave you space to grow. Angela became my farm manager. She'd learned every aspect of the operation and had a gift for logistics and planning. "I forgot I was capable," she told me once. "My ex-husband told me I was useless for so long I believed it. You reminded me I'm not." Tom and his wife became like parents to me. Real parents. They invited me to holidays. They gave me advice without judgment. They celebrated my successes without needing to claim credit. Jennifer and her family, she'd married since I'd known her, included me in their family dinners every Sunday I wasn't at market. Her kids called me Aunt Sophie. I taught her daughter Emma about growing herbs, and she kept a garden journal with careful observations. "Why doesn't your real family come to visit?" Emma asked me once. "Because they're not part of my life anymore," I said honestly. "Did they do something really bad?" "They did lots of small hurtful things for a very long time," I said. "Until I realized I was happier without them." "That's sad," Emma said thoughtfully. "But also, you seem really happy here." "I am," I said. "Happier than I've ever been." Dr. Walsh and I had reduced our sessions to monthly check-ins. "You've done remarkable work," she said during our last session of year 3. "You've built not just a business but an entire life on your own terms." "I still get sad sometimes," I admitted. "About what I wish they'd been." "Grief for what should have been is normal," she said. "Healthy even. You can mourn the family you deserved and still maintain boundaries with the family you got. Those aren't contradictory." One evening in late October I got a letter. Actual paper, actual stamps. My father's handwriting on the envelope. I sat on my porch for 20 minutes before opening it. The sun set over 40 acres of harvested fields. The season was ending. The ground was resting. The letter was 5 pages. Handwritten. It started with, "Dear Sophie," and ended with, "Your father who loves you." In between, it said many of the things I'd needed to hear at 16, at 23, at 26. It acknowledged the favoritism. It admitted the cruelty of that Sunday dinner. It recognized years of dismissal and comparison. It apologized. It also asked, carefully, humbly, if we could rebuild something. Not what was, but something new. Something honest. I read it 4 times. Then I wrote back. 2 pages. "Thank you for this letter. I've waited a long time for these words. I believe you're sincere. I believe you have regret. But I need you to understand something. Forgiveness isn't reconciliation. I forgive you. I genuinely do. I've worked too hard for my peace to carry anger. But forgiveness doesn't mean I want you back in my life. I've built something here that works. I've built a family that sees me. I've built a success that's mine that I don't need to prove or defend. Maybe someday that changes. Maybe in 5 years or 10 years we can have coffee and talk about farming. But not today. Not this year. Possibly not ever. I need you to respect that this is my choice. The gate stays closed. The numbers stay blocked. This boundary stays firm. I hope you understand. I hope you find peace with it. But this is my life and I'm keeping it." I signed it Sophie, and mailed it without a return address. Year 4. 50 acres in production. The business broke $500,000 in revenue. I bought an adjacent 20 acres for expansion. The farm supplied 7 restaurants now, ran 3 farmers markets, maintained a CSA with 150 members, hosted monthly farm dinners, ran educational workshops and employed 14 people. I was written up in state and national farming magazines. Young Farmer of the Year finalist. Invited to speak at conferences about sustainable agriculture and fair labor practices. I bought my employees health insurance. I started a profit-sharing program. When Angela's daughter needed braces, I gave her an interest-free loan. "You don't have to do this," Angela said, crying. "Family takes care of family," I said. "Your family." Tom's wife got sick that winter. Breast cancer. I organized a meal train with the farm community. I hired extra help so Tom could take time off. I told him his job was safe, his wife's health was priority, everything else would wait. "You're a good person, Sophie," he said. "I'm trying to be the person I needed when I was younger," I said. My father sent one final letter that year. Brief. 1 page. "I understand. I respect your decision. I'm sorry for everything. I'm proud of you, though I know I don't have the right to be. If you ever change your mind, I'm here. But I won't push. I love you, Dad." I kept that letter. I didn't respond. But I kept it. Rachel sent a Christmas card. Just a card. No note. Just her signature and love, Rachel. I didn't send one back. But it didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. My mother sent nothing. Maybe she was the angriest. Maybe she couldn't forgive my boundaries. Maybe she'd convinced herself she was the victim. I slept deeply anyway. Spring of year 5. I stood at the edge of my fields at dawn. 50 acres about to wake up for another season. The soil was healthy now, rich and dark and alive. The barn was full of equipment. The farm stand was ready to open. My employees were arriving for the season. Tom walked up beside me with coffee. "Hell of a thing you built here," he said. "We built it," I said. "You taught me everything." "I taught you technique," Tom said. "You brought the vision. The heart. The belief that people deserve good food and fair treatment. That's all you." Jennifer's family pulled up the drive. They were coming to help with spring planting. Emma jumped out already wearing her farm boots. "Aunt Sophie, can I help with the tomato seedlings?" "Absolutely," I said. "Let's get started." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I glanced at it. A text. "Saw your feature in the Times. Congratulations. You've built something incredible. I'm sorry we weren't there for it. I understand why you've stayed away. I would have too. Be well, Rachel." I read it twice. Then I typed back, "Thank you. I hope you're well too." She responded, "I am. Take care of yourself, Sophie." I set the phone down. "Everything okay?" Tom asked. "Yeah," I said. "Everything's okay." And it was. The sun rose over my fields. My chosen family gathered around me. The season stretched ahead full of possibility. The soil was ready. The seeds were ready. I was ready. Keep the farm. I keep my boundaries. I keep the peace I built with my own 2 hands. The gate code doesn't change. Most numbers stay blocked. The life I built stays mine. And the vegetables? They keep growing. The tomatoes ripen in 6 colors. The lettuce fills hundreds of CSA boxes. The herbs season thousands of meals. I feed the town that my family lives in, and they never knew I was capable of it. Sometimes failure looks like leaving. Sometimes success looks like 50 acres of proof that they were wrong. I grew it anyway. I keep it anyway. I'm keeping it still. The land is mine. The business is mine. The peace is mine. And that's worth more than $200,000 could ever buy.